most important aspects about our health. And it's paramount that we all understand what it really means to eat healthy. Now, you probably had a time in your life where you decided to diet, or I'm going to change my life and I'm going to eat healthier and I'm going to do better. But you've often found that was really difficult to know really what you need to be doing. And that's often because there's a lot of misinformation that's spread around the modern age of the internet that makes us confused as to what we really need to be doing, and we often get confused and quit. I went through this exact same process when I was about 14 and 15. I was extremely overweight. I was 220 pounds, and over the course of about a little over a year, I tried a bunch of different diets, exercising, and I lost almost 100 pounds. And the years preceding that, I worked on various diets, trying to gain weight again, different forms of exercise. I tried to maintain weight. I've tried a million different diets, a million different ways. I've seen what fails, I've seen what works, and I feel like I've learned a lot over this very, very long process. So often, when we're not informed, we usually resort to a lot of fad diets, and these modern fad diets are particularly low-carb diets, which are insufferable, unsustainable, and frankly, just unhealthy. And so it's important that we understand what we really need to be doing to eat healthy. Of course, we know that our modern diet is typically really unhealthy. Usually, most people will resort to easy-to-get fast food because it's very cheap and it's a lot easier than making food in your dorm. And usually, these foods have a lot of excess bad nutrients, meaning excess saturated fats, trans fats, simple carbohydrates, lots of sodium. Oftentimes we eat foods with a lot of sugar in them. And this results in us being, at least maybe not physically being overweight, but at the very least we're physically unhealthy because we're not getting these good nutrients that we need. And because of this, sometimes we will resort to fad diets. These fad diets are typically, in the modern age, low-carb diets like keto. Keto you've probably heard of. Essentially the idea is you essentially try and eat as little carbs as possible, forcing your body to use your fat stores as energy, therefore you lose fat. That's the idea. The problem is it's not scientifically tested at all. It's just an idea. What it often neglects is that carbs are an essential nutrient for energy. For example, a study done by Sharon Denny found that when athletes were placed on a low-carb diet and athletes were placed on a low-fat diet, they found that protein and fat don't get stored as muscle fuel. Carbs are the best source of energy. What this means is that these athletes weren't getting the replenishment that they needed without consuming these healthy carbs. Our muscles need them to be able to function. Often these diets also require us to eat more meat to compensate for the amount of calories we're not getting from carbs. The problem with consuming a lot of meat, particularly red meat, is that it results in high blood pressure, fat gain, or in other heart problems. Jessica Magala also notes that a diet high in red and processed meats is linked to increased risk of gastric cancer, meaning that all these red meats are not good for you. The Mayo Clinic also notes that these low-carb diets can have a lot of side effects. I've gone through them myself. Headaches, nausea, constipation, trouble sleeping, just complete lack of energy, losing strength. I know that I personally lost a bit of weight while I was trying this keto thing, but it wasn't a healthy way at all. So typically, these diets don't work out very well. And if this isn't the solution, then what is? Well, the first thing we have to remember is that our diets need to be balanced. The first key to balancing our diet is to track something called macros. Well, what are macros? A blog called SCL Health notes that macros are essentially, they help you understand where your calories are coming from. It helps you see, okay, how much of my daily diet is a percentage of carbs, fats, and protein. One way to explain this would be a quote from that same article that says, 1 gram of protein is 4 calories, so if you eat 125 grams of protein, that's 500 calories, leaving 1,500 calories for you to split between all of your fats and your carbs. Notice how that says protein, fats, and carbs. It's saying that you need to be consuming all of these things because that's what your body needs. Limiting a nutrient is not the key to any sort of diet or weight loss. What should be noted is that it really helps you understand if you're consuming too much fat, because oftentimes that's the problem with the modern American diet. We consume way, way too much unhealthy fats. And low fat really helps you lose fat. Amazingly, the more fat you consume, the fatter you get. And it's important to be consuming more lower fat foods and leaner meats. A study done by Kevin Hall and his team placed 19 people on a low-carb diet and a low-fat diet, and they found that significantly more body fat was lost during the fat-restricted diet than during the carb-restricted diet, meaning that the less fat you have, the more fat you lose. So really the key to a diet is to make sure that you're consuming all three of these nutrients and make sure that you're limiting these excess bad fats. Of course, we know that it's not that simple. We can say that that's what we need to do, but it's not always that easy. Weight loss and dieting requires a lot of consistency and a lot of focus. It's very, very hard and time-consuming, and I've gone through personal times where you just completely give up on it and you think you can't do it anymore. Well, that all comes down to personal responsibility and remembering, okay, I can still eat what I want to a little bit, but I just need to be avoiding these high-fat foods. The CDC recommends trying lean meats like salmon. Personally, I recommend venison. I know that's not very easy to get around like very densely populated areas. I'm from rural West Virginia, so it's a lot easier to get deer meat. You can go out and get it yourself. But it's important to try and get lean meats where you can. Try chicken instead of red steak. All those red meats are a huge problem in our diet. What we should also do, and CDC notes this, is that we should limit the amount of sodium we consume. Sodium is salt, and most foods nowadays have lots of salt because they need those preservatives, because they're meant to be served very quickly or kept in a freezer for a long time. And when we consume too much salt, that leads to bloating, increase in blood pressure, increase in weight. So it's important that we avoid these things. And if you take any point away from this, it's that you shouldn't fear any sort of nutrient. All of them are important to our diet. Essentially, it's very hard to diet in this age where greasy, cheap, easy to get foods are the norm, and that's the easiest thing to get. But it's our duty to remember that we need to take personal responsibility and make sure we're paying attention to what we are eating. Instead of getting the big double bacon cheeseburger with all those, greasy fries and say a large soda and maybe some ice cream with it, and it's like, wow, that sounds really good, but you just have to keep it in your mind that, okay, is this really going to help me in the long term, or is this just going to make me happy for a moment? Instead of getting all that nasty food, get something leaner. Get some chicken, maybe have just some water, maybe have the kids fry. You don't have to completely cut these fast foods or any of this stuff out of your diet entirely. It's just small little changes will make the biggest difference. And the reason that we should keep in mind these changes and the reason that we should always pay attention to what we're eating is because we only have one body. And therefore, it's our responsibility to make sure that we obtain the knowledge and follow the practices